Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. So if this podcast comes out as scheduled, it should be coming out December the 19th. I'm actually recording it on October the 17th. I got a busy schedule. I got a lot of stuff coming up, and sometimes I get far ahead on my podcast so that I can take care of other things, but I want to make sure I'm putting out some content for those of you who like to listen to my podcast to grow and develop yourselves and maybe your teams. So if everything's coming out on schedule December the 19th, that means Christmas is coming up. I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. I hope you guys have a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And what I want to talk to you about today is it's a question I get fairly often. It's usually from people who I actually have some type of relationship with, who have the courage to call me and the humility to tell me they're struggling. So I usually get this question asked with a phone call from someone in a company that I've spoken at before. Maybe it's people that I end up mentoring, or maybe it's just a leader who's read a lot of my books or even listened to the podcast. But the question goes something like this: How do I deal with a problem employee? That's the question they have. How do I deal with a problem employee? And then I said, well, tell me about it a little bit. So then they start telling me about this person. And a lot of times these people are people that they haven't really gone very far down the leadership development path themselves, or they haven't gone down the personal growth and development path themselves. They've just been exposed to it. And again, it's not everybody, but I get this question a lot from what I would call novice leaders, meaning they're really managers of people. But they've heard me talk, or they've read some stuff in a book, and they kind of buying in. And first thing they want to do is they want to address a pain point. And the pain point they want to address is the employee or multiple employees on their team that's causing them problems. Usually that means they're not going with the flow, these employees. And the leader is dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of frustration. A lot of times these troublemakers, as these leaders call them, a lot of times these troublemakers are causing a lot of trouble on the team. So there's a lot of discontent amongst the team. A lot of times these troubled problem employees are considered toxic to the team. So I appreciate the leaders calling me. I'm really glad they called me. One thing I know is they're probably going to struggle doing with the advice that I'm about to give them, but it is the absolute thing that they must do if there's any hope of helping this troubled employee become a high impact team member on the team. The reason I know that they're going to struggle with it is, again, most of the time, actually all the time, I can say it all the time. When somebody asks me that question, that means that leader does not know how to lead this person. That's the only reason they would ask me that question. If they knew how to lead this person, they would not be having that problem. I think you probably can understand that as I say it this way. So the only people who ask me this question, how do I deal with a problem employee? They don't have the leadership ability to do that, or they would already have done it. So that's one reason I know when I tell them what they need to do, I also know they're basically not prepared to do it effectively. So I've got to convince them that this leader, the root cause of the leader's problem is not the problem employee. It's the leader's lack of leadership development within themselves. But I still tell them what they need to do, and then I tell them they're probably going to flop around all over the place. But the answer may surprise you, because the leaders always want to know, how do I get through to these people, these problem people? So the answer may surprise you. The answer is let them get through to you, Mr. or Miss Leader. And I don't say it quite like that. I'm a little bit nicer. What I really tell them is I tell them about the habit 5 from the 7 habits. It's where I learned about it. Seek first to understand, then be understood. And I tell them there's something about these people you don't understand. Why are they being belligerent? Why are they being disruptive? Why are they being however it is they're being to cause you a problem? Why are they being lazy? Why are they being mad? Why are they coming in late? Why are they taking long breaks? Why are they being uh, less productive? All these things that are causing the boss, the leader, a problem. The boss needs to go first and try to understand them. But most of the leaders who call me, they're trying to get these problem employees to understand them, meaning they want the employee to come to them. I got a problem with you, then you need to come to me, meaning you need to do what I say, when I say it, how I say it, because I'm the boss. That means I'm asking you to come to me. If I'm the leader, I'm going to go to you and I'm going to seek first to understand you, because what I know is if I give you some psychological air, so to speak, let you breathe, if I can lead me well when I go try to understand you, especially most of these people I'm talking to, they've never done this. Most of them don't even know how to do it. So I'm trying to coach them into doing it and then get them to go do it. And when they go do it, if this person, this problem employee has never been listened to, they might unload the truck on the boss because finally they asking me my opinion. And the employee is usually just as frustrated, if not more, than the boss. So a lot of times the employee will have some kind of attitude. They may raise their voice. They may get angry. As soon as they do something like that, if this leader who isn't prepared to lead at the level I'm trying to get them to lead at, if they're not ready for that, then the leader's going to flop around like a fish out of water. The leader might get defensive. If the leader's insecure, they might get angry because they're trying to take control. They feel like if the employee is getting angry or frustrated, I'm just going out there to try to help like Mac told me to do. And then they blow up in my face. Well, you got to pay the price for your lack of leadership for the past weeks, months, or years, Mr. Leader. So if you go out there as a leader, you try to do this habit 5, seek first to understand. That means, by the way, if you're trying to seek first to understand, that means you're not asking questions. You may ask one question to kind of get it going, but you really don't even do it then. You just say, I'm out here. I know there's some things going on between us. I'm out here, and it's obvious that you got a problem with me. You're probably aware I got a problem with you. And I'm just out here to see if I can attempt to understand from your frame of reference why we have this problem. So I'm just here to understand. A lot of times you just say that if you're doing it authentically and you don't have a lot of anger or animosity and all that kind of stuff inside of you trying to come out, if you just humble and you just there to try to serve that team member, to try to understand them, it's going to come through and they're probably going to start talking. But again, they may unload the truck on you. If they start unloading the truck on you, there's a whole lot of other leadership skills and principles that you're going to have to apply for that to be effective. But the one thing you don't do is when they start talking, you don't start asking them questions. That's called probing. People don't like to be asked questions. If they got a problem with you, they don't want a lot of questions. See, when you start asking questions, you're directing the conversation. If you're trying to understand them, guess who gets to direct the conversation? They do. But if you're a manager of people, you're going to want to go out and probe them to death and ask them questions. And again, I'm talking about when there's social, emotional, when there's issues. Because if there's a leader with a problem employee, there's some emotions going on. Anger, frustration, stress, there's all kind of stuff going on. So that's the time you got to seek first to understand, then be understood. So you don't probe You don't ask questions. You don't judge. You don't say if they're right or they're wrong, because as soon as you start agreeing or disagreeing with someone, you're judging them. You're not out there to agree or disagree. Maybe later you will. Maybe later you need to. But when you're initially trying to do this, the whole point is to understand. So you don't probe and you don't judge. You don't try to figure them out. Well, they're saying this because. You don't have to try to figure them out. You're standing in front of them. If you'll do what I'm going to teach you in a minute, instead of probing and judging and trying to figure them out, they'll tell you all the things you need to know. You won't have to figure them out. You won't have to ask them questions. And again, they don't need you to judge them. But most leaders, which are really low impact leaders, who are managers of people, they want to go question after question after question. They want to drive the conversation. They want to control the conversation. All they're going to do is make it worse. So then, if you can't do that, what do you do? What do you do to seek first to understand? And I've talked about this on previous episodes, but I want to talk about it in the context of the leaders who call me and say, how do I deal with a problem employee? So what you do is you try to reflect their content, the words they're saying, at the basic, most simplest level. And you do not want to do this very long at all. And if you can avoid doing it at all, skip it. But if you don't know how to do anything else, when they start talking to you and they start unloading the truck on you, mimic their content. That means you say exactly what they're saying. And I'm telling you, if you do it very much, you're gonna look like a fool. People gonna get frustrated with that. But at a bare minimum, do it once or twice to get the conversation going if you can't figure out nothing else to do. And this habit's hard. I recommend, if you've got this problem, even if you don't read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book, get that book and just study habit 5 to learn this process. But again, I'm telling you, to do the process effectively, you're going to have the first 4 habits. You don't have to necessarily read the book to be able to apply those principles. You may already apply those principles in your life. I don't know. But whether you read the book, whether you do it naturally already, somewhere you've had to have learned it, and now you're about to have to apply it. But habit 5 is what you're shooting for. So if you walk up to the employee, you know there's a problem, and you do what I was talking about before, just tell them I'm out here to understand. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to agree or disagree. I just know we have a problem, and I want to understand your point of view, your frame of reference. How do you see it? What is the problem? That sort of stuff. And the person just says, well, you don't communicate with me. You don't tell me nothing that's going on. And they may say it just like that, or they may say it a lot more angry than that. If you mimicking content, you just say, so I'm not, you mad because I won't tell you what's going on and I won't communicate with you. Right? That's mimicking content. And then they may say, well, yeah, because blah, 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 blah. Because they felt understood in that moment, because you were like a mirror. That's what you want to do. There's different ways of doing it, but you want to be a mirror to the person. They may say, yeah, well, the other day or last week, so-and-so happened, and I didn't find out about it till later. So now there's something else you can do. You can rephrase their content, and you can also marry that with reflect feeling. So you can rephrase their content so you're not mimicking, like literally mimicking it, and you can rephrase, you can reflect the feeling. So I could say, so you're so basically you're getting frustrated. I can tell you're frustrated because I'm slow about informing you when things are happening. And they say, well, yeah, blah, 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 blah again, because I got it right again. right? They said, you didn't tell me about this, whatever, last time. So I rephrased the content and I reflected the feeling. And I said, so you're frustrated because I'm slow about informing you when things are going on. And you got to practice this. You got to practice rephrasing content. There's a great lesson in the 7 Habits book, and I've heard Covey talk about it when I saw him on video when I used to watch videos of him a long time ago. And one of the best lessons he did was he was teaching this, and he was talking about a parent, because you need to do this at home too. If you got problems going on in your marriage or with your kids, this is what you anytime there's frustration, anger, sadness, any social emotional stuff going on, someone in that group can be the leader. Doesn't matter who. Then they need to learn how to seek first to understand, then be understood. And we ain't even talking about the be understood part. I'm not even talking to you about that yet. I'm still talking to you about how do you seek first to understand. Because if you got a problem employee or a problem in your relationships at home, first problem you got is you don't understand the problem from the other person's point of view. You may think you understand it, but until they feel understood, it doesn't matter how you feel. You got to let them go first. Soon as they feel understood, they're going to calm down. Then you're going to have a chance to be understood yourself. But until they're ready to understand you, there's no reason in trying to get them to understand you. And if you're the leader, you're going to let them go first. You're there to serve them. You're there to help them. But just to get it out of that worker context, get it into the parent and the child context, share with you what Covey said this one time. He was giving an example. He said, a dad's talking to the kid, and the kid's telling the dad something. And, it's kind of private. And the kid says to the dad, you won't tell mom, will you? And what would most parents say? I can't ask you literally to tell me because I can't hear you. You're listening to me. But when I talk to people and I ask them, I say, what would you say if you were the dad and the kid tells you, well, you won't tell mom, will you? A lot of people say, well, it depends. That's what they would tell the kid. Well, it depends on what it is, son. Or, well, you and your mom, me and your mom and I, we share about everything. So yeah, I got to tell mom. Or some dads will just say, yes, I'm going to tell her. Don't matter what it is, I'm going to tell her. Some dads may say, no, I ain't going to tell her. It's just between me and you. All those things are not seeking first to understand. Those things are the opposite. So you think, well, what would you say? Remember what the kid said. Well, you won't tell mom, will you? So if that dad was trying to do habit 5, seek first to understand, rephrase content, mimic content, reflect feeling, do those kind of things. When the kid says, you won't tell mom, will you? Dad would say, so you concerned about your mother finding out. See the difference? The dad in that case just expressed and reflected the feeling. The kid's concerned about the mother finding out. The kid may say, well, yeah, but she's going to find out anyway. Go ahead and tell her. They may not say that, but that's one thing that they could say. But if you said, well, your mom and I share about everything, well, you may not ever hear the answer. You may not ever find out what the kid's got to share. But I'm telling you, this is a high impact leader strategy for dealing with people, employees on their team members, co-workers. They don't have to report to you. You don't have to be the boss to do this. This could be a peer at the same exact level that you're at in your department. It could be someone in a different department. It could be a customer. It could be a supplier. What this is a principle that allows you to seek first to understand other people. It does not matter who they are. It matters who you are. And if you're willing to let them go first, and then eventually they're gonna dump a good load of stuff on you. Instead of just dumping the truck on you full of all their problems, all their frustrations. Once you get all this done and they truly feel understood, then they're gonna start telling you what's really going on in their mind, what's really going on in their life. Because you're gonna build trust. When you get enough trust built for them to start peeling back the layers of the onion that is them and their life, they're going to start telling you some stuff. You're going to start seeing them different. Some point, too, if you're doing it right, they're going to ask you a question. Guess what happens the moment they ask you the question? You get to be understood. You may go through 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You may go through an hour. It may take you a few days. It may take you several meetings with these folks before they ever ask you any questions, before they ever feel understood, especially if you flopping around all over the place, especially if you're getting it wrong. And you may not even know you're getting it wrong, but I'm telling you this, if they're not feeling understood and opening up to you, becoming very transparent about some core things that are going on in their life, you ain't there yet. You hadn't figured it out yet. You ain't doing it right. No matter how right you think you're doing it, you ain't doing it right. The evidence is in if the person calms down, you start to have a cordial conversation about what's really going on, and they're leading the conversation, and then they ask you your opinion. Because when they ask you your opinion, that's when you get to the second half. First half, seek first to understand. Second half, then to be understood. But this is another spot. Even if leaders can get to that spot, or parents with their children, even if they can get to that spot, that's another chance and another spot that they most often screw it up. Because then the leader or the parent who's trying to now be understood, they dump the truck on the other person. You don't get to unload your truck. If you're the leader and you understand what you're doing, somebody asks you a question after you've done all this work to try to understand them, you get to answer their question. And then you switch back to what all of this stuff I'm teaching you is called empathic listening. You're trying to empathize with them, meaning you're trying to see it how they see it. Sympathy means you're agreeing or disagreeing. You're not trying to sympathize with them. You're not at that point of agreeing or disagreeing. You're trying to empathize with them. You want to see it how they see it, and you got to tell them that's what you're trying to do. Help them help you. Tell them you may flop all around. If you got a lot of humility, tell them you ain't done this really before, but you heard a podcast or you read something about it in a book, and you realize, hey, y'all got a problem, and I'm trying to take responsibility for dealing with it. And the first way I need to do it is I need to try to understand you, and I may flop around all over the place. Just doing that's going to help you build some trust. So you got to switch back and forth. Once you get them talking and asking you questions, you got to bounce back and forth between answer the question and then switch back to trying to understand until they ask another question. And again, you can get on YouTube. I'm sure there's some videos from Dr. Covey, Stephen R. Covey. I'm sure there's videos, old videos. He's passed away now, but I know there's old videos of him teaching about habit 5. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Type those terms in YouTube and find some videos. You don't have to go read the book. But I've given you enough nuggets in this episode, in this lesson, that if you truly want to try to understand someone, again, you may flop around, but I've given you the nuggets you need. Don't ask questions. Don't probe. Don't judge. Don't try to figure them out. Do mimic content. Do reflect content. Do rephrase content, and do reflect feeling. Be a mirror. Be a sounding board. What they're saying is bouncing back at them some way. What you see with your eyes, when you're empathic listening, you're squinting with your eyes for feeling. so that you can reflect it back. You're listening with your eyes, not just your ears. What's that person's behavior saying to you? Put that in words and reflect it back to them. And if you're a leader, a formal authority leader, you may be saying, I ain't got time to do all that. You know what I got to tell you? You ain't got time to be a leader then. If you ain't got time to lead, you ain't got time to be a leader. You keep on managing like you've been doing, and you're going to keep getting the same old results you've been getting. That's what I call leadership truth. Kind of like a surgeon's scalpel. It might sting, it might hurt a bit, but it's meant to help. This process I'm telling you, this is what high impact leaders do. This is what separates them from the crowd and the masses of low impact leaders who are really and truly managers of people. They don't have time for this. So they either terminate the employee or they just ignore the employee. But they don't develop the employee. They don't develop themselves so they can effectively deal with the employee. They don't develop the team members so that the other team members can help this employee grow and develop. No. Managers of people, they ain't got time for leadership. That's why they're called managers of people. My podcast, my book, Managers of People, they ain't got time to read a book. They got authority. They don't need influence. They have formal authority. They don't have to worry about developing their character. They don't need any moral authority based on character. They got formal authority based on their title and position. They can just hire and fire people. They can just tell people what to do. But just remember, those are the people who call me and say, how do I deal with a problem employee? And remember, I know when they ask me that question, they don't know how. I got to help them. I got to try to motivate and inspire them. Sometimes they're frustrated. I got to do habit 5 with them. I got to seek first to understand them before I try to get them to understand me. I got to do this exact principle sometimes when I'm talking to those people. But I'm going to tell you this. The people who are capable of getting it right, whether they get it right smoothly or they flop around all over the place and they get it right, those leaders call me back later and tell me how effective that principle was. I love when those people call me because I know they've grown a lot. Because before they called me, they didn't know how to deal with that issue and that problem, that employee. When they call me back and tell me it worked, that I know the person I talked to, that's the ROI, the return on investment of my time. This person went and tried it. But then I also know there's people I never talked to. They go out and try it. It doesn't work. They don't call me and tell me it doesn't work. They tell themselves, that stuff Mac said doesn't work. I tried it and it didn't work. There's only one reason it will not work. It's because if you don't have that fundamental learning and development within yourself to do the things that make it work. Leadership, high impact leadership says, I'm responsible. If you got a problem employee on the team, you're responsible for fixing the relationship. You're responsible for developing yourself. If you've never developed that employee, see, a lot of people who call me, they got a problem employee and they've never taken that employee through any kind of leadership development, much less years of it. They just wish and hope they would be a great employee. I'm going to tell you this, the outstanding high performance teams, high impact leaders, the great companies that everybody wants to work for, where the culture is phenomenal, they don't just go out and hire these phenomenal people, bring them in, and they got a phenomenal culture and a phenomenal team. They do go out and hire those people, and then they develop them continuously and relentlessly for years and years and years and years. But managers of people, they ain't got time for that. Guess what they got time for? Dealing with all the problems that a poor culture and low character people, including themselves, cause. The byproducts of low character in the leadership ranks and in the team, They got time to deal with that, but they ain't got time to grow and develop themselves and their team. I don't understand it, but that's the way it is. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.